And it gives me great pleasure to hand over to another company who's going to share their funding journey with us. Lydia is CEO of BoobyBiome, who are also in the DPV portfolio.
Thank you very much, Jane. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to talk to you today. BoobyBiome, here we go. I'm Dr. Lydia Mapstone. I'm a microbiologist and CEO of BoobyBiome. And today, I've got a talk of two halves. Part one, I'm going to give you an introduction to who we are at BoobyBiome, what our mission is. And part two is going to be a much more informal of what our fundraising journey is to date. So, starting with part one, I'm going to talk to you about what's really inspired us and a problem that we detected very early on in 2018 as to why we're here today and what we're really driving for. So over the last 50 years, there's been a surge of seemingly unrelated childhood diseases, including asthma, type 1 diabetes, and childhood leukemia. But children with these diseases share a link. The community of microbes which live in their gut, known as a microbiome, is disrupted. So it's been shown that the first bacteria which enter our guts influence the likelihood of developing chronic diseases later in life. Why? Well, these bacteria train our immune system to tolerate matter from the outside world, but also within our own bodies. And incredibly, breast milk contains a microbial community, which actually contributes to 40% of these pioneering bacteria. They're so important, breast milk's evolved to contain complex sugars called human milk oligosaccharides, which ensure that these particular bacteria can grow and dominate in the infant gut. Unfortunately, breast milk research is a very underfunded area. It was even excluded from a $250 million human microbiome project. Breastfeeding support is also incredibly underfunded. Over the last 100 years, breastfeeding rates have declined by 50%. Reasons for this include, incompatible medication, repeated mastitis, mothers returning back to work, and others just finding it a really difficult and painful process. Of those that still are breastfeeding, 85% opt to frequently pump and store their breast milk. Unfortunately, during storage, oxygen destroys these really beneficial bacteria because they're adapted to low oxygen environments. Worse off are formula-fed babies, of which there are 72% by 6 months. Now, formula, made from powdered cow's milk, does not contain any of these beneficial bacteria. And unfortunately, both sets of babies are significantly more likely to develop autoimmune diseases. Now, back in 2019, we asked ourselves, can we utilize the breast milk microbiome to rectify infant health? So we discovered exactly what these different bacteria are in breast milk by developing the world's first breast milk microbiome database. We then generated a biobank of these novel strains, isolating them directly from milk. This then allowed us to give it, this gives us lots of information and allowed us to innovate. And for the time being, we're spinning out 2 products, but we've got many more in our pipeline. So what is the solution? For breastfed babies, we are developing lids called bubbles, which are universally compatible with all baby feeding bottles. They have an inbuilt compartment where a sort of tea bag-like cartridge can be placed, and that removes all of the oxygen from stored milk and ensures that these beneficial bacteria can survive. We also have developed this technology into single-use storage bags, which is another really common way where mothers will store their milk. I'm going to show you a little bit of data from this. It's a totally new discovery that we made ourselves when we were doing research. And so I'm really proud to show you some of our pilot results, where we found that using the device after 7 days really improves the numbers of the most useful bacteria in breast milk, called bifidobacteria, by 3.5-fold. So it really increases them, they're still alive. Also, the antioxidant content in stored breast milk, so things like vitamin C, is also maintained to the level it would be as soon as it's expressed. If it's not used, if it's stored as standard, then it massively declines over time. Also, we've realized, because this technology that we're using is very commonly used already in the food preservation industry, we've also improved the shelf life of breast milk using our device. So as you can see, when it's stored using our bubble device, it doesn't curdle. It visibly looks just as it was when it was expressed. And also, lucky us, we've been going around smelling the samples after 7 days too, and there's a massive difference in them. You can really smell when we've not used our device, and when we have, the odor's gone, which I'm really delighted about, because there's a massive problem with mothers having to discard their breast milk, and it's very heartbreaking for them. But of course, this is for the breastfed infants. What about the formula-fed ones, which really are not getting any of these beneficial bacteria? Introducing our symbiotic product. We are developing this from our database and biobank, and it is at the moment a sachet which contains all of the beneficial bacteria from breast milk that we've sourced. It's multi-strain to better mimic this ecosystem, and also contains these really interesting milk sugars I mentioned to ensure that our bacteria can grow. Because of this, it's called a symbiotic, because it contains live bacteria with the prebiotic sugars. So not actually only formula-fed infants can benefit from this. We've also can also help C-section babies or babies that have taken antibiotics, as they've also can be really have very damaged, limited microbiomes. And I'll show you a tiny little snapshot of our data here. So as I've said, we know from our database exactly what's in breast milk, because we've amassed a lot of data on this, but we've also been able to find out by looking at milk lots of other different factors, such as, does the mother combi feed? Does she provide formula milk as well? Has she taken antibiotics recently? Because we've also been collecting a lot of metadata on their lifestyle factors and medication usage, as well as, lucky us, a lot of infant stool as well. So it's very interesting for us, for our database, to be able to spot these microbes that are really overlapping between the two. Of course, like I said, we've generated a massive biobank now of all the different bacteria we've isolated. We've sequenced their genomes, and we've been able to rank them for the most favorable attributes for really improving the infant health and the first microbiome. And then we've also tested for highest ranked strains on gut cell models. And we found that they're incredibly effective at reducing inflammation and also improving gut barrier integrity. So our next steps with this product are to test it in an artificial gut, and then we're going to set up our first clinical trial in full-term formula-fed babies. And who's the we? So we're a trio of female entrepreneurs, each holding a doctorate in different but complementary sciences. So there, we've got Shauna and Tara. Wave, guys. Hello, there we are. Together, we think we really do have the expertise to produce rationally designed products to help vulnerable infants. But we're not alone. We have a team of 3 employees and also a board of seasoned entrepreneurs in femtech and pharma. We've got academic advisors and also experienced investors. And together, we're really driving towards our ultimate mission, which is to provide every baby with an intact breast milk microbiome for equal access to a healthy future. So that's part 1. And I hope you all got our mission and what it is we're driving for with that mini pitch. But first, I'm gonna talk to you about our funding journey to date. And when I was asked to give this talk, I had to sit down and really think about, okay, what are the different fundings we've had? And actually, it's quite difficult because there's a lot of overlap in different categories. But I've really got it down to these 5. So we've had all of the money from PhD-related funding, a little bit from accelerated competitions, not as much as we would have liked, angel funds, Innovate UK, and then, of course, venture capital. So I'll start you with our little journey and a history of how we've managed to acquire these different amounts of money from different pots. So back in 2018, 5 sprightly, enthusiastic PhD students thought that it would be really cool to enter a startup competition called Biotech Yes. We had already found, we were only in our first years of PhDs, but we'd already found that academia is not the most satisfying places to be sometimes. And we've been really inspired by Dr. Renaud Sava's course that had been part of our PhD program called the Bioindustry course, where he immediately told us within our first week of starting our PhDs that, you know, there is life beyond academia and you should really explore it. It's really worthwhile. It's a big bottleneck going on. Get out. So with that motivation and learnings, that's really what drove us to try and accelerations and see what would happen. And we learned a lot from that first one we went to. I think the most visual representation I can show you is how our logo has changed over time. So if you're an investor in the room, please cover your eyes. I really don't want you to see this, but everyone else, you can it'd be interesting lesson for you all. So here's our current logo. We're very pleased with it. We've got the boobs, we've got the biome. But the first logo that we had looked quite different. It looked like that. I know, we've come very far, haven't we? Anyway, so thank you. You can uncover your eyes now, investors. So really, PhD funding was really helpful in those early days because, first of all, that got us onto the Biotech Yes program. Our PhD funding pot could, fueled us to do that. We also realized that there's lots of small pots of funding that our admin team, our administration PhD team had, which meant that we could apply for accommodation and travel to different accelerator competitions that we then went on to do. Our PhD also, we were really lucky, it came with a industrial placement program, which meant we could spend 3 months working full time on the company, which paid for our salary. And then finally, actually, after our PhDs, because we had a very developed business at that point, we were able to apply for a fellowship grant, which provided us with 6 months funding to follow on and see what we can make of the BoobyBiome and everything we built during our PhDs. So, we did Biotech Yes. 5 of us, you notice. There are only 3 founders now. The other 2 people that we did the competition with, we got on really well, but they actually ended up being very successful academics in their own right. I think they've got about 3 Nature papers between them. So they made the right decision and got out quick. Well, in their opinion, not ours. But they were, we're very good friends with them, and they've done very well for themselves. But the rest of us, me, Shod, and Tara, we turned to ourselves, and during the competition, we set up an Instagram page about BoobyBiome. And out of nowhere, we had people we didn't know messaging us and saying, wow, I would have loved a product like what you guys have written about on this page, because I found it really hard to breastfeed and I knew this was a problem, and I really think what you guys are doing is great. And that really made us stop and think, and we'd already decided we didn't want to do academia, and we looked at each other and we said, should we just see how far we can kick this can down the road? We've got nothing to lose. Let's continue doing our PhDs, but also just seeing what other competitions we can do and what else we can learn. So we've done a number of different accelerator competitions between sort of 2018, 2019, including Pulse, organised by the BIA, Imagine If, Panacea Stars. I don't know what happens with those red boots. I think Sean might have burnt them. Because, they mysteriously went missing after that photo was taken. But we also did University Birkbeck courses organised again by Rena Sava, who has been a great support over the years. And accelerator courses were a really interesting way of not necessarily getting funding for us, but again, building our business plan and seeing what we could learn and networking. So we've only actually won, at the bottom point here, £5,000 from accelerator programs, but we've really raised and improved the value of our business substantially by getting a template for a business plan, getting a finance forecast model. We've been able to meet so many different people, and actually it was at one of these events, the BIA Pulse, where we met our first investor, our first angel investor. So that was a really critical part of our journey. And as I've alluded to, the next set of money we got was from angel investment. So we met our first angel investor. There were 2 of them. They had a funding company called New Atlantis Ventures. We, of course, could get SCIS funding, which meant we get big tax breaks for these investors to put some money in. And that was really exciting. While we managed to get that first, it was only £50,000, but of course we were doing our PhDs. We had our salaries fixed for our industrial placement. So we also managed to, as well as get the funding, we managed to persuade a very kind and extremely knowledgeable academic at the Institute of Child Health, Great Ormond Street Hospital, to let us use her lab and really build on our research and our plans with her. So this is our first day. Sean is very happy to be moving in with all of our first things. It was 2020, the turn of 2020, when this all came together. So we actually did have quite a big pause for about 6 months, because I think the week after we moved in, the whole country went into lockdown. But that's fine. We went dormant, we put our heads down, we planned, we waited, and eventually we were let back in, which was really helpful. So a note on angel investment. So we've actually raised in total 250,000 in the next fund as well, including from Discovery Park. I have to say, we've really experienced a huge variation when it comes to angel investors. So some of them are extremely careful. They really scour our data room. They ask for more data. They interrogate us at meetings. They ask really intelligent questions. And then I've also had others, ring me up and say, hi, Lydia, I'd love to invest. I'd love the team, love the vision. And my response would be, oh, okay, great. Do you want to read the business plan? And they've said, it's a work of fiction, really, isn't it? Really helpful. And so it is a complete mix, and it's quite shocking how much variation it is around that. So it's just something I would say the ones that ask lots of questions tend to be the ones you really want to invest in your company, rather than the ones that can't really be asked to read your business plan. So yes, of course, we got the angel investment. That was great. We got back into the lab once the pandemic had, died down a bit. We built our first database. It was very exciting. And so we looked at each other and we looked at our advisors, and everyone was saying, you need to apply for some Innovate UK grants. Really important, nice use of funding. It's free, no equity needed. And so we're like, okay, fine, we've got time. We'll do some Innovate UK grants. And so how I'm just going to tell the story of grant funding is I've plotted what the score was you needed to get in the grey line for the Innovate UK funding, and the blue line is what our score was. So in the first time we applied for a SMART grant, we were well off, as you can see. I think our score was something like 68%, and we needed to score 85. But, it was the first one we'd ever tried. So we weren't too fast, We still had a couple of years left on our PhDs anyway. If we'd won it, I don't know what we would have done. But, it was a learning curve. So we're like, okay, we're going to try again. Let's try again a couple of months later. So we tried for the next SMART. And, our score just went up massively. We were so pleased with ourselves. I mean, we didn't get it, but again, it was really, we'd learned a lot. The application improved massively. So then with that in mind, and off the back of that success, we're like, okay, let's try Women in Innovation grant. This one was only 50,000, but let's give it a go. And as you can see, that was quite a painful moment, actually, because we were so close to almost getting that. But we looked at each other and we were like, okay, look, I know it's been free, and each point on this graph, actually, is about 3 all-nighters, I'd say. So it was a lot of work and very distressing during our PhDs, when we also should have been in the lab and not wasting our time with grant applications. But we were so close. And so we decided to apply for 2 more grants. And as you can see, it didn't go to plan. We seemed to score worse. We were extremely surprised. It was really upsetting. We put so much work. They were genuinely much better applications. I look back at them and I was just like, this is so much better, but there's 5 assessors, right? And if one person doesn't like you or doesn't get it, then, that's just not good enough. And we were devastated at this point. We were basically out of money. We spent it all. We built a really good database at this point. We were really pleased with ourselves, but we weren't getting anywhere with it. And it was very difficult as well to raise money without grant funding, as we found out. So we had one more shot at it. And I think it was the same day that I wrote the final line on my PhD thesis very late into the evening. So I went to bed, and then I woke up in the morning when we found out of the next grant, with about 20 missed calls from my 2 co-founders and messages with increasingly intense profanity, let's say, telling me to wake up, because finally, we got a biomedical catheters grant worth £565,000, and that was just indescribable. We were so delighted and happy, and suddenly it meant that we could really go out to invest and say, we've got a really, really big grant. Come on, do you want to give us some match funding? And it was just a really, really good day, a very sleep-deprived but great day. And we've actually since then managed to win 2 more grants. We've conquered Women in Innovation and SMART grants, and I never want to apply for either of them again. But we've finally got the knack of it. I'm a bit worried about this happening, but we'll get to that. We've actually applied for another couple of grants, which we'll find out the results of very soon in the next couple of weeks. So please, fingers crossed for us that we continue this winning streak now. So I think probably echoing a lot for what Joanna Gold said, but they're worth persevering with, Innovate UK grants. They're hard, they're time-consuming, they're soul-destroying, sleep deprivation-y. There's lots of horrible parts of them, but when you win them, wow, you really unlock a whole world of new investors and really good due diligence. So we've won actually I've gone from the bottom up, that's bad, but we've won about £820,000 now from Innovate UK. I have to say, additionally to the money that you get given, Innovate Edge officers are so useful. So our Innovate Edge officer has got us on different accelerator programs, given us sort of free subcontracting work. She's got us going to random pitching events, which we do quite well at, and meet loads of people and we network. So that's also a really great reason to also go for Innovate UK grants. And as I've already hinted at, it made us a lot more attractive to investors, which was where we got our next pot of money. So we have then raised £700,000 in our next round from Venrex, a VC, and some angels, including, of course, our lovely host, Discovery Park. And this leads me to the final part, which is what we've learned from venture capital. So we raised £500,000 from Venrex. It was a really long process, and actually I think it was for negotiating the terms was a bit that took actually the longest bit, which was extremely stressful because we were really worried about losing our Innovate UK grant because we had to match fund that, and there was a timeline, and it did get a bit hairy towards the end. But we did it. We negotiated good terms. We were both happy with it by the end. Have to say, we found having a VC great. I know some people have horror stories about VCs trying to take over and being really aggressive board meetings, but we found our VC to be really useful. They linked us up with many other people. They got lots of resources and very reasonable and well-placed advice when we need it. And of course, they have the capacity to follow on, which is very helpful if you have a VC backer. And so that leads us to where we are now. So, of course, we did that fundraise. We finished our PhDs finally. So it was on our Viva day. We got some employees. We built a board. And suddenly, we're at the end of 2023, and we're back onto our next fundraise. Yay, never ends. So we're now raising our seed. We'd like to raise minimum of 3.5, ideally up to 5 million. We want to launch both our products, which I've shown you today, to market. We're really excited to build a network of parents and mothers, and start seeing if we can reverse this trend of autoimmune diseases that we're seeing for the next generation. So thank you very much for listening to my talk. Please follow us on our socials. We need to build this network. We need to expand. We want to get our voice out there. So please do follow us. We really appreciate all the support that you guys can give. And thank you. And I'm ready for any questions.
Very inspiring and great story, and I can't imagine how many long sleepless nights doing your PhDs and doing this at the same time. It must have involved. Is there any intellectual property or patents processes you've gone through, and was there anything to share from that process that might help people?
Yes, of course. So our biobank and our database, of course, trade secrets. There's a lot of value in there, and we've got lots of plans what we're going to do with them for follow-on products. We have patented as a method patent on our bubble device because, of course, that's a completely novel approach which no one had thought about before. So we're really pleased with that's a very good patent, not a design one. And as for our symbiotic patent, it's actually currently in draft, but we'll be protecting the combination of the bacteria and the sugars, combination basically, because that's the best way of doing it. It's a sort of formulation.
Just a simple question. When will your product actually be out into the market, and where will it sell? Will it sell in supermarkets, or how will you sell it?
Yeah, great question. So our bubble device, we are aiming for a launch date of Q4 2024, so in about a year's time, maybe even sooner. We really want to accelerate that and get that out as soon as possible. Our symbiotic product is a much more complex thing we're building. It's much more sort of traditional biotech, and for that we want to do a clinical trial before we launch the market. We could technically, with the strains that we've got, launch it in 6 months, which is what a lot of probiotic companies out there can do. It really concerns us, and I think there's a lot of skepticism around probiotics and that market because people don't really properly validate them or know and try to work out what their mechanism of action is and things like that. So that one is a longer one. That's going to be I believe it's Q3 2027 is our current timeline for it. At the moment, both will follow fairly similar sales trajectories. So we initially, for our bubble product, will be going D2C, so via online e-commerce sales, how we see it at the moment. But then we really do want to move B2B as quickly as possible. We just want to get a bit of sales traction and then be able to partner with breast pump companies and also hospitals. About 30% of the bottle market actually is in hospitals for the bubble product. Where they use a lot of, it's quite bad, but quite a lot of single-use steri-feed. They're called steri-feed bottles, and others store their breast milk. So we're already talking to a clinician at the moment, actually, who wants to do a clinical trial with the bubble in St. George's Hospital in Tooting, which is going to commence very soon in a matter of months. For our symbiotic, again, similar thing. We want to do clinical trial, and really hospitals are the place where they're most needed, particularly preterm infants. So that's currently our plan, if that makes sense.
Looking at your business, Do you see yourselves moving forward focused on those two products, or do you expect more products to come out of your pipeline?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, so we do want to produce more products. We want to be basically the main company that parents go to for advice, for support, and for getting rationally designed and useful products that actually work and can really improve the health of their infant. So while we, of course, at the moment we're aiming at the very early babies, so that's really where that critical window of opportunity is to really change their gut health. We've also are interested in potentially supplementing mothers, because we've found out some mothers in our database have really rich, really interesting microbiomes with lots of these really probiotic beneficial bacteria, and others seem to have almost like a desert. There's really very little there, and that's an avenue that we're really interested in going down and seeing if we can support that health. And then there's also, I don't know how many of you know anything about breast pumps, but there's been very little innovation there over the last sort of 20, 30 years. And so we've also got ideas for developing a potential new breast pump, but we'll see, that's quite far off. I mean, we do need to make some revenue and start turning that out. So we're focusing at the moment for the short term on these two products, but we do have big ideas and a lot of ambition to try and dominate this space over the next, 10 to 20 years. Hi. Yeah, so the question was, what endpoints are you thinking of for your clinical trial? So for formula for babies, there's a number of different things we'd like to measure. So first of all, you can see, if we supplement them with our probiotic mix, our symbiotic mix, is their microbiome much more similar to breastfed babies? So that's a really clear microbiome comparison you can do. But of course, it's also really nice to know, do they have any functionally better benefits or outcomes from that? So we can start looking at immune markers, such as cytokine production, anti-inflammatory markers, which is something we'd like to look at, and also gut barrier integrity. So actually, is their gut less leaky? Is there less sort of flow through going on that? Because that's a really important part of having better gut health and really improving our outcomes for different babies. And then finally, there are sort of behavioral characteristics you can follow up on as well. So for example, colic, there's been really interesting data actually showing that some probiotics seem to reduce the incidence of babies just inconsolably crying and being colicky. So that's also another impact that another endpoint we can look at and we'll measure. But we're still actually planning our first clinical trial with that product later on. So that might be subject to change a little bit. With the bubble, it's the clinician that really wants to test it and thinks it could be really useful in her clinic is the preterm infants. There's a disease called necrotizing enterocolitis that they get, and at the moment they're treated with probiotics, some of them. It's very up to the clinician whether they're using them or not. And it might be something we could help with as well, but a lot of preterm infants, if they are giving breast milk, they still can get this disease. And if we could help those babies too by making that microbiome be more intact and sort of, make them, live longer and have better outcomes, and that would be a really good thing to look at as well with the bubble device. So that's what the clinician's really going for, which also thinks that possibly, there are other hospital-acquired infections are quite high in that group too, and it could help against that as well. Hi.
Can I just congratulate you? I've gone down a similar grant, middle of the night, all of that, and it's I've got the bruises. So good luck to you, really good luck to you. However, I couldn't help but notice that your new board is all male, and that rather surprised me.
We have a woman on it. We have Dr. Helen O'Neill, who is the CEO of Fertility. But yes, we do have men on it as well. We can't completely exclude them. But yeah, you're right. We do have male board members. They're brilliant. They provide us with great advice. They're champions of what we're doing, and we're really happy to have them.
I'm sorry, it's me again, and it's a very random question, but do you think the newborn sequencing program could have any impact on your products going forward?
So from my understanding, they're only really looking at the DNA of the infant, right? They're not really looking at the microbiome. Potentially, yes, because I have to say that is one thing that does puzzle us a bit, and we just need more data to really elucidate what's happening. But you can get, babies that are born by C-section, babies which aren't breastfed, and that means that they're missing. So it's been estimated that your first sort of influx of microbes that colonize you from birth, it's about 30% as your delivery method, 40% from breastfeeding. the other remaining 30%, is there a dog in the house or sort of random environmental factors? But it's really interesting, these babies which are, like I say, are missing out basically on 70% of the natural bacteria that they should be first getting exposed to. And some of them are just fine. They're completely fine. And, I think that's something that we shouldn't shy away from, and really understanding why is it that these babies are okay, whereas, statistically there are lots of other babies that definitely do struggle, and there's a problem going on here. So it would be really interesting to, once that sequencing data comes, to see if we can start pairing the genetics with microbiomes that we're collecting of baby stool and mother's milk. So yeah, that could definitely be a really interesting partnership for us. Oh, I think, sorry.
I had a nerdy question last time. This is a bit of a comical one. You said after your initial biotech yes, where you put up this page, and then you had mothers writing to you saying, I wish there was a product. You didn't tell us anything about a massive publicity drive that you guys have been doing almost continuously. You've even been on television. What has this done for your company? And has it got anything to do with how your grants have gone?
As in, has the publicity been helpful?
Yeah.
Yes, it has been very helpful for collecting milk samples in particular, and building our network. Yes, we were on a show called, I don't know if any of you saw it. It was called Know Your Shit. On not BBC Radio 4, definitely not there. On Channel 4. And we had a little interlude where they went to film us in a lab, and it was all about people with bowel problems going to Poo HQ and saying, I haven't done a poo in 3 weeks, to the opposite problem of other people. But we featured, we had about a 5-minute clip where they were talking a lot, of course, about the gut microbiome and the importance of that. And so we had a clip where they came to interview us at the Institute of Child Health, and the question was, where did we get this microbiome from anyway? And that was sort of our little piece, our 5-minute piece in there. That was immensely helpful. It's been really great to have, people engage what we're doing. I think an education piece is a big part of what we need to do and strive for. A lot of people still haven't really heard about the microbiome, or if they have, they haven't necessarily heard about the breast milk microbiome and how important that is. So that's going to be admittedly a challenge, but also one that we relish, and we're really excited about getting out there and spreading the word and telling everyone about that. And it was really exciting to be on national television, and we want to, if anyone else can give us a good gig on Channel 4 or BBC, that would be great. We need to get it out. It was particularly useful, like I said, for getting more donors. So we're always collecting breast milk. We're always going to be studying and building our database. That's really important for generating new products. So once we were on national television, and also we've been on BBC Radio Wales, I think, a couple of times, Sinead speaks Welsh, so that's very helpful. That was really useful for us. Because our data set is our main value proposition, right? So the more we can build, the better it gets. Thank you very much.